Hello and welcome to Still Uncaptured, your favorite podcast with me, Kgomotso Matsunyane.
And of course, with me, Ndumiso Ngcobo, without a beard.
He's sure.
I'm clean shaven. I'm trying to, take back the years.
And today we have a very special guest whom we're going to have a fabulous conversation with, Tessa Dooms. Welcome to Still Uncaptured.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me on your channel.
Indeed, on our
Welcome to your channel.
And I met you in January.
Yes.
Yes. Second week or first week of
Yeah.
Or was it February? Anyway, sometime
early
early
in the
2025.
Her memory is
horrible.
Is gag. This is not radio. You can't say gag here.
Thank you for the freedom.
Oh yes, we can say anything that we want. But Tessa, you have...
Before you do that, we have a thing
that
we do. Please just take them through all our socials. And what do we do first when we start the show?
We're going to say what we're grateful for.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But do you want to do the socials first? Or
Do the socials and then let's get into gratitude.
Interact with us. Still Uncaptured. We're on Spotify and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. Comment anything that you want to talk about. We may disagree. Let's not fight. Let's disagree. We can disagree.
No, you can disagree with her, but you can fight with me. I'm all right with fighting.
We're really enjoying the robust conversations that people are having with us. Yeah. And we'll try to be more interactive. Social media is a lot of work, though. We must really have to say. I'm on Twitter. And I'm on, for me, it's just still Twitter, at Motsomatsu. And I'm also on Instagram, at Motsomatsu.
And of course, I am also on Twitter, at Ndumiso Ngcobo. I'm on Facebook. I'm prolific on Facebook.
Yes, you are.
And then I'm on TikTok. It's an age thing for me.
Yeah. The kids are rolling their eyes.
They're rolling their eyes. I know.
But
what are you grateful for?
Oh man,
today,
guys, let me tell you, I had a horrible week.
Yeah.
Emotionally, financially, socially, everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong. Things are just not going well. So, but I'm also on antidepressants. So I wanted to cry. But when you're on antidepressants, what they do is they kind of numb you. You don't feel the extremes. So I don't get too upset and I don't get too happy. Do you understand? So crying is actually a problem. It's like, in the past 5 years, I think I've cried like 2 times, And I've been feeling like I need a cry. I want like an ugly Oprah cry where like my shoulders shake. And I got part of that this morning. So I went to a funeral. Like,
like your 17th this month, yeah, I know.
Tessa, I go to a lot of...
It's been tough.
No, partly it's because I live with my mom. She's 83 and she goes to a lot of funerals.
Oh, got you.
But I also have been going to a lot of funerals. So Bev D's sister, Palisa, passed away last week, unfortunately. She was 50 years old. Young, dynamic woman, absolutely brilliant. And this morning was a funeral. And she was cremated.
Yeah. We like that.
We love that, right? Yeah. And I bawled. Oh, like shoulders shaking, snot, en trane, die hele gedoente.
The cathartic one.
And when you finish, like, it took about half an hour for me to kind of physically come down. I think I'm still shaking a little bit, kind of like from that. But you know what? It was a good thing. I enjoyed it.
That is something to be grateful for.
It was a release. I cannot tell you guys, we need to cry. It was an emotional release. It was a physical release that I hadn't realized that I needed so badly.
There's the stereotype. So I'm the woman of this particular relationship. I cry. Oh, shame, I cry all the time. So I
get commercials, okay?
I should co-opt you into my family. We're a family of chronic criers all the time in every form. My dad leads the crying march. So join my family.
I'm grateful for 2 things, right? One of them is that, good Lord, I mean, I am the fattest I have been in about 7-8 years. Like, it's so bad that this morning I had to change my boxers because as I bent over to moisturize my legs, it just went split around the butt because that's how big I am. My boxers
God damn.
So I just made this conscious decision over the last 2 weeks to change a whole bunch of things. And one of them is Tebogo and I. Tebogo was my wife. We went on a beautiful hike. We got lost. We were meant to be doing 4 kilometers. It ended up being like 6 kilometers because we were lost. And I'm so grateful. It felt good. And then the Monday came and I walked on Tuesday. I walked and I feel like I'm feeling so much better about myself. I'm still fat, but I mean, at least. So I am really, 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 really grateful that I'm starting to take care of myself. And this is a subject for another episode, but there's a huge change that you will not believe that's still coming. But I'm just gonna let you know.
You're not going to tell me now.
No.
So I have to wait.
Of
You know
course,
I'm
you are
terrible
aware.
at that.
I know. Tessa, now that we've given you time to actually think, what are you grateful for?
So also, me and you have had the same week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And most of it has been about, me and how I engage with the world and wanting to like do better and save the world and change things and try to fix this country of ours. And I've spent a lot of emotional energy on that. And I just got to a point in the last 24 hours where I realized I have to stop giving to everyone else for a bit and give to my family, my friends, my loved ones, the people also who give back to me.
Right.
Because all the work that I do in activist ways and activist circles, that's me pouring out to others. And so I'm grateful that I have the kind of community, and particularly my family, that are just like steady, steadfast, always there, always waiting, good human beings. And so I opened up my phone back into my family world in the last few days and found out that I'm a bridesmaid next weekend.
Oh!
So my parents are having their 50th wedding anniversary
Wow.
next weekend. And so they're hosting this kind of big bring together of everyone. You know, one of those where there's no real invitation.
Yes.
It's just a come one, come all. And my mother's just basically decided she's redoing her whole wedding moment. And so all of us are now going to be bridesmaids and groomsmen, and I'm going to fetch my bridesmaid dress. But the joy of having a family that is so solid, that is so solid as human beings, and being able to celebrate my parents. My father is 83, my mother is 71. And so just being able to celebrate them, I think is one of those joys that many people don't always have, you know?
And especially because in South Africa, we have so many fractured families.
Yeah.
You two are like an anomaly in the sense that you were raised by two parents.
Yeah. And
You
so
know?
just I'm really looking forward to that moment of just immersing myself back into a place of lots of love next weekend. So, I'm going to be Story Macy.
Not to go into motivational speaker talk. Basically, what you're saying, because I've followed you on Twitter, and I know your activism, and you basically have been pouring to everybody else's cup, and it's now time to
Pour
fill
back
up
in.
yours.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Exactly,
Tessa, you are
yeah.
such a... I don't know how to call you. You're a very unique individual. Like, first of all, incredibly talented, incredibly smart. Your razor sharp mind. I started following you before I even met you, right? And I like your politic and the way you think. But tell us about your activism. Where did you grow up, and why did you become the Tessa Dooms that we're meeting today?
Sure, yeah. So my activism is a product really of that family that I described. So born and raised in Eldorado Park, and a child of a pastor. So I'm a PK.
PK?
Yeah, I'm a PK.
Hello.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Welcome to my channel. I'm a PK, and my parents aren't just pastors. They are really actually community workers, or always been. So I was raised in this kind of context where you are here to serve others. You are there in service of people, and that's been the whole thing. So if you go to Eldorado Park and ask for my parents' names, everybody
knows.
they are that couple.
Right.
They're
It's like
that.
do they call them the Dooms?
The Doomses.
The Doomses.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the Doomses are just that kind of family. And so it was just a natural extension for me because that was how I was raised. I was raised to be in service of. And then kind of this moment happens going into university. I never had dreamed of going to university. I was going to be a fashion designer. So I was going to go to like design college somewhere and whatever. And a friend of mine who had gone to university, one of the few people in Elders who I knew had gone to university, basically said to me, go to university and just see what's there for you. It may open up a world. And going to university and finding myself studying in, the BA space and all of that, you start
Which university?
meeting Wits.
Okay.
You start meeting activist types, all over the show, and people who kind of give you a sense that you can change the world, not just your small pond. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to change elders. We're going to make elders. And then I kind of met people who started going, no. There's a whole big world out here that we can all collectively start to change. And I met a mentor in one of my lecturers. His name's Paul Jamond. And Paul was kind of that person who started really giving me insight into politics and my politics. Because in a place like Eldorado Park and with parents like mine, that place was one that wanted to shield us from the politics of the day. Because it was birthed, Elders was birthed out of so much violence. It was birthed out of the violence of disruption of families and forced removals and all of that. That I was really in an environment where people wanted to shield us from the politics of the 80s and even into the 90s. And all of a sudden, I started getting politically conscious in not a partisan political way, but in the world needs people who are willing to take up stances, who are willing to be brave, who are willing to change things. And I think that was what started to cook my activism slowly but surely, and also my passion for young people. So I was the youth leader at our church from the time I was about 15. And so my love for young people also just translated. And so it all started to come together while I was in my university days. And I went into a career of being a lecturer. And at some point, about 6-7 years into that, I was still in my 20s because I started teaching when I was like 22 or something silly. I have no idea what business I had.
Do you know he was a teacher? Ndumiso was a teacher too?
For 4.5 years, yeah.
And somewhere in the middle of that, I said to myself, I cannot continue to lecture and teach young people that I'm sending out into a broken society if I do not have the courage to go and fix the society. And I think that was the thing that flipped it for me. That's where my activism, all of it comes from that moment.
That's actually a very nice segue into the meat, really, of what we wanting to talk about. And I'd like for us to have this because it's a hot potato right now. The colored identity, because you're talking about elders. And we want to just start this off by saying what you are not here to do. You are not here to come and talk to us as a spokesperson for colored people. I don't think you can't. You are not whatever. We understand being colored is a complex, multi-dimensional, just like any other identity, even Jewry, like Jew. I mean, right now, just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you're Zionist. Just because you're black doesn't mean you're black consciousness and so on. Everyone, it's a very, very diverse space being colored. You can't even speak on behalf of coloreds that think like you, that believe what you do. And so before we jump in, we want you to be very clear that you understand that we're not bringing you here as the colored to come and speak for all coloreds. And I'm going to give it to Kgomotso to ask the first question about the situation. Just set the scene for us. How did we get here to having this conversation?
There's a podcast, for young people.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called.
Open Chats.
Open
Chats. Yeah,
that's right. I've only seen clips, and they had a really unfortunate, ignorant, uninformed, unfortunate conversation, basically, where they spewed some worrying, prejudiced, and racist comments.
Crass.
Press about comments about colored people, right? Which in that particular moment also is like us against them, right? Okay, fine, I'll take it. Or like maybe there's differences, right? But the way they went about it was problematic and the country was justifiably outraged. But one particular individual was outraged. Our minister with a gap.
The gap.
Yeah, our minister with the gap there. So Minister Gaten McKenzie, Minister of Arts, Sports and Culture, entered the fray, right? And he said, "Not on my watch.
Yeah.
This is wrong." And I believe he called for the cancellation of the show.
Yeah.
And to be like, basically, like, that's not going to happen. You're not going to insult colored people. And I want that show cancelled, basically. And I don't know, did that happen?
I'm actually
No, so
not.
it didn't end up in cancellation yet, but I know that there's some sort of legal processes because some people laid criminal charges, they've asked for retractions.
right.
I know the retraction happened.
Okay.
But not necessarily cancellation. I think DSTV actually, though, might have taken them off
Of
their
the air,
platform,
right,
but-
right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then I'm listening to your show. And
But hang on.
yes.
Remember the Gayton
Oh,
then
Gayton, yeah.
was... People went into his archives on Twitter.
Of course, I'm jumping the gun.
You're
Okay,
jumping the
yeah.
gun. I wasn't finished. Then Minister comes and his history of vitriol, of a comfortable, way too comfortable
Absolutely.
person saying the K word and saying K this, K that.
Kaffers, yeah.
Kaffers.
Yeah.
Basically, and it was like, oh my goodness, like, was that the pot calling the kettle black? So that's what brought us to this particular moment. So okay, take it.
And also he was saying kafir in a way that also, not to his defense, in a way that he also seemed to be claiming that because he's got a Mosotho mother, he is speaking that way because he feels he can say kafir because, he all of that. And so, but it wasn't nuanced at all. It was just, it was all over the place. And then obviously, as a result of all of that, a conversation naturally then developed where everyone was now talking about. Now, all of a sudden, people are like, what is colored anyway? Like, what is this whole thing? And this is where you come in, because this is what you are not addressing necessarily all of that, right? You just were talking about the fact that people like myself, when I went to university long before you did, the late 80s, I started 1989, and so on. And back then, we had this whole thing. Back then, it was called ACI. So all the black people, African, colored, and Indians were meant to be black, and I was steeped in very much in black consciousness. And black consciousness is everyone who's not white is black, and so politically, that is what we were expecting to believe, that post-apartheid South Africa, there's not going to be colored anymore. There's not going to be Indian anymore. And for the longest time, I'm also one of those people that used to be like, why do people, one of my friends was Eusebius, and then you talk about the colored identity, and I just, what is this colored identity? But you said something that made me see things in a very interesting way, and I'm going to let you say, not really so much, and we're going to look for the clip, and we're planning to actually play it.
Of those, absolutely. But there's been a spin-off conversation that has been about the legitimacy of colored identity. And I want to ask you all, people are saying colored people should not be calling themselves colored. If we shouldn't call ourselves colored, what would you suggest we call ourselves? Comrades, I don't know what else I am other than colored. Not because I don't know my lineage, right?
Yeah.
I know my lineage. Some colored people actually don't. Because the violence of colonialism and apartheid was about erasure. It was about erasing people's history. So for some colored people, like me, I have the benefit of a family that kept track, that can give me my lineage. Some people don't have that. For some people, the koi and the sand is their lineage, and they can go back to that because they can trace that. That's not all colored people. For some people, we're descendants of slaves. And so you are September because you arrived here on a ship in September. Do you now call yourself Indonesian because you come from the Malay background? I think what people are missing in this conversation is that when people say that they are colored today, we're not referring to being part of the racist, colonial, and apartheid classification project. Because after that classification project, there was this constituting of communities. And so when I say I'm colored, I say I'm from the community that raised me. And the culture that we created together, despite the violence of apartheid and colonialism. when the generation after me, who are now 20, the Tylers not colored because Verwoerd called her colored. She's colored because her mother called her colored, because the community called her colored.
And the community found pride in being colored, right? Which was meant to be a way to like oppress people. They were like,
Absolutely.
okay, you're going to group us like this and we're going to develop our own cultures. We're going to develop our own principles as a society, and we'll take pride in what you try to use as something to put us down. We'll take pride and run with it moving forward.
100%. And I also want to state, especially to my colored brothers and sisters, that this is not about us not being black. So I've said many times, I am black and colored. Just like somebody else can be black and Xhosa, somebody can be black and Zulu, I am black and colored. Colored is my ethnicity. And the black consciousness movement was about a movement of reclamation, about taking the word black. Remember, there was no black before there was whiteness.
Yeah.
So black consciousness was about reclaiming the word black and saying black is about our unity, our struggle, our shared sense of solidarity.
And our beauty.
And our beauty. And so I claim being black as much as I do being colored. And yes, the colored community has its issues. Every community has its issues. But what is erased from the colored story is the language, the food, the religion, and all of the cultural artifacts in the last, at least if you're counting from apartheid, the last 70 years we've created together. And if you're counting before that, many people can trace this back even further in terms of what colored identity means to them. So I'm asking, in that context, if I'm not allowed to call myself colored because the colonizer gave me that name, what do you expect me to call myself?
You were talking about the fact that you've got a colored identity does not mean that you also don't have a black identity, but you said it in a very, very particular way. And we just wanted to, for you to unpack that.
Yeah. So yes, all of those events definitely had my phone blowing up. Because a lot of people within the colored community and other people knowing that I was co-author of a book on colored identity. So in 2023, I launched myself and Lindsay Ebony Schutel, who was my co-author. We wrote it together, Colored, How Classification Became Culture. And so my phone starts blowing up and I'm like, what's going on in the country that requires my attention? And it was this question about responding to what was clearly the pain of colored people and the community. And this wasn't the first time that that kind of, you need to step in here and also say something about this because your community is hurting. It was actually also the genesis of writing the book. And that genesis came in 2021. So if you'll remember, a young guy named Nathaniel Julius was murdered in Eldorado Park, where I'm from, where Lindsay's from as well. And a similar kind of moment came of outcry from colored communities, and particularly from the community of Eldorado Park. And there were two things that came out of that, because I was already in the media space at the time doing political commentary. Lindsay is a journalist, so she was also, of course, in the media space. But there were two questions that are similar then and now. Number one is the question you asked, like, why are you still using the word colored? What is up with still using that identity? Because I think it was hashtag Colored Lives Matter. Because remember, it was also that time of George Floyd and all of that. And so people were asking that question. And then the other question is, why are colored people angry? And similar to this moment, there is this unspoken thing that colored people don't have the right to be angry. And I've always questioned, what is that about? Or I had to start questioning it, especially when I realized that, for me, I'm like, it's obvious why colored people are angry. We're in South Africa. We are all going through this storm of being in this country together.
Yep.
We are all feeling marginalized. We are all in what I call the oppression Olympics of South Africa, but everybody has to make a claim to why they
We're
are
still living in apartheid
more
spatial reality.
Absolutely. All of those things. So I was like, why would you think that colored people shouldn't be angry if you are angry?
Yeah.
Even you, Pete, you're also angry. Everybody
Right.
is angry in this moment. But it occurred to me that both in the question about why you use the identity and the question of why you're angry, there's a delegitimizing of coloredness that needs to be addressed. And that's what the community feels. The community doesn't feel that it's not black enough or white enough. That's a very crude way of saying we do not feel seen and legitimately heard in this society.
Right.
That everybody else gets to have a voice, everybody else gets to have an identity. We don't. We get asked, who told you can talk? Who are you actually? What is your background? What is your claim? And I feel like that's where the community finds itself. So even in this moment. And so my view on it is one that I have to speak out on behalf of my community. Because I'm not colored because Verwoerd told me I'm colored. I'm colored because this community raised me. And so I have a responsibility to speak up for this community that raised me, especially as somebody who has broken through so many sound barriers to having a voice that is listened to, whether it's on Twitter or radio or any other kind of platform. But the other one is also that the community is in its own learning process, its own growth and evolution process. And I have to say this on behalf of the colored community, because I don't think that it gets a lot of credit for this. Our community is wrestling with itself. No one is just comfortable with the idea that we call ourselves colored. There's discussion happening about that. There's a nuance that is being built around that. No one is just comfortable with the idea that our community's genesis is colonialism and apartheid. We're wrestling with that. And especially, we are not comfortable that the stereotypes and the things that are known about us in society are largely negative. We're not comfortable with that as a community. And so we are a community that is busy wrestling with those things. But that wrestling is not seen in the public. It's not accounted for. So every time the colored conversation comes up, it's about people telling us who we can or can't be, or people telling us what those open chat guys were saying, that we are these debased people, we don't have culture, we're this, we're that. And so this moment is about colored people speaking for themselves. And what Lindsay and I learned when we were doing our book tour in 2023 and 2024 was that we have a community that is hurting because they feel silenced. They absolutely feel silenced because they feel like if they speak up, they will be seen as illegitimate, right? And so where does the illegitimacy come from? Gayton kind of clarifies that by the tweets that we see coming up. It's this question of, julle dink julle is beter.
Yeah.
You think that you're better than everyone else because apartheid gave you a little bit more privilege than other Black communities. That we're a community that was almost baked in apartheid's divisiveness, right? Because apartheid was this divide and rule strategy amongst Black people.
Yeah.
And we were baked in that. We come together after forced removals and after the Group Areas Act. And we are told, if you want even just this little bit of crumbs that is better than other Blacks, you're going to have to denounce your Blackness and you have to remove yourself from other Black communities. It was divide and rule. And so we're baked in that. And so part of what comes to the fore is these questions about anti-Blackness within the community and whether or not the community is reckoning with itself. And I think all of that has come to a head in this moment.
And the thing about, which is why we're talking about coloredness, because I have colored family, right? So my mother's side, there are Kinlochs. There's a patriarch who came from Scotland in Edinburgh, and so, which is weird.
And it's not that long ago.
And it wasn't that long ago.
No.
Really. So so for instance, my grandmother, right? She and obviously now we're talking about KZN colors. Who also it's very complex. So it's very different from
which is different from Western Cape.
Western Cape colored and whatever. And then one of the stories that is told about my grandmother is how, well, number one, she's one of the darker ones in the. So there was also part of that that issue about colorism, the curls in the hair, and then she went and fucked up and married a Muntu and married my grandfather who's like a black
a proper Bantu.
A proper Bantu with a broad nose like mine, you know what I mean? And then a painful story of how her sisters actually, when they threw her out of the house and put her in a wheelbarrow and threw her outside of the house. And so when you talk about those relationships between colored people and black people and so on. Because also apartheid special thing was so incredible because it was like this concentric circle.
Yes.
The white in the middle, the Indians around them, because I think Indians, then the colored almost like a periphery, and then, the black people. So there's a lot of tension, growing up in Durban. You couldn't go to Club Zoom, for instance, in Durban because the Brenos are going to murder you and so on. So what's interesting for me is that I really realized that I've been very lazy personally as well to kind of think about just the turmoil that you are talking about within that particular community. And so is there that schism that some of you, I see your braids, but some people don't would
But
not
Tessa
do
also
that.
very specifically also calls herself black.
Black. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And let me start there at calling myself black and what that means in the context of my community, right? So I didn't call myself black until I was in my early 20s. And it was that moment that I'm talking about, being at university and then just having that opportunity, because one of the things we don't think about is that you need actually space from, being in the rough and tumble of an issue in order to kind of see some clarity. And you don't always get that space. University was that space for me. But the idea of being black was not something that I thought about very often. And I don't think that most colored people are thinking about whether or not they are black.
There's even a possibility, right?
Never mind as a possibility, but it wasn't the thing that as you're being raised, you're told you're not black. It's not that.
It wasn't even an issue.
It's not that kind of, but you were told you are colored. Right. So the one thing I knew about myself was that I was colored. But I also knew, and it was very clear to me, that my family was diverse. Right? So I have Zulu cousins, first cousins, who are Zulu. I have Tswana, first cousins. So I also knew my family was diverse. But the question about being black wasn't as stark as people might think. It wasn't as pointed as people might think. It would come up though in the things that you're talking about in terms of the colorism. So you would know that being darker is not preferred, that you want to be lighter. And that, if you're going to date a guy with lighter eyes, so it was this kind of, it was inferred, not direct, right? And then I get to university and I start thinking about, and people are talking about the fact that, race is constructed and all of these things, and, and that blackness is about not being white and being oppressed by whiteness. And that moment for me then gives me clarity to say, actually, I'm black. I'm black because in the world of whiteness, that is how it works. White supremacy says anyone who is not white is oppressible and thus black. That's it. That's it.
You could be 7/8 white. You're still not white.
You're still black.
Absolutely. And that's the architecture of how racism works. Yeah. And coming to that understanding was really important for me because, number one, I then started asking myself, so is it possible for me to be black and to be colored? And one reason why this is important is because of the way that racial classification worked during apartheid and now. Because people are talking about, why do we keep these classifications? So it comes from there. The white people during apartheid knew that we were all black. They just didn't tell us that they knew we were all black. But how do we know that? When you look at the classifications, the classification under apartheid was native, colored, Indian, white. Those were the 4 categories. None of those categories were called black.
But you did have it the other way around.
Yeah. In sequence of...
Obviously. What's wrong with you?
In sequence of priority, of course, yes. Reversed, right? But they never used the word black because they knew we were all black and they were trying to divide us and oppress us.
Successfully.
And so I needed to start seeing the world through that lens. And I then understood, because my father's a Motswana man, very much so, in the way he moves, in language and whatever, but he's also a colored man because he's in this colored community. And I started then making sense of the fact that what coloredness is for me is my cultural identity.
Right.
And then I could accept I can be black and colored in the same way that somebody could be black and Zulu or black and Xhosa, because I now know that when I say I'm colored, I'm trying to speak about the way I move in the world, how I do my hair, what songs I sing, where. Those are the things that I'm saying when I say I'm colored, right? So the Tyler moment even. People are like, why is Tyler calling herself colored? She's trying to explain herself to you.
And African Americans are not liking it. They're not getting
not
it.
at all.
But the worst thing is they don't want to get it.
Not at
so
all.
I'm kind of like, Tyler, just be you, you know?
No, but also colored. You must all remember that colored in America is also very
Something
loaded.
So
Yes,
different.
I know,
Yeah.
but we're telling them, and Tyler keeps telling them, and they just won't listen.
Yeah.
And so Tyler's just saying, like we are saying, that there's a particular set of now cultural nuances, because we forget this is 80 years ago that the apartheid moment happened, right? And I think of that as a really important moment in the colored identity, because there are people who use the word colored, long before that. But the communities we see now are really a product of that Classification and the Group Areas Act, because before then it was a lot more disparate. And so what we did, and this is what we argue in the book as well, is that what we did is the classification moment happened. It was disruptive. It was violent. It took things from people like their names. My father's name was taken from him. He was Lisole. He came out of an apartheid classification officer's Elliot.
Wait. So he was born black?
He was born Lisole.
Lesole.
Botswana.
Kokai.
Yeah, from now northwest Vryburg.
Vryburg.
So Dita Koneng was the...
Okay,
the
Ditokaneng.
village. And so
Okay.
that's where he comes from.
Was it a self...
Yeah.
Was it his choice or the government's choice?
No. So it was the family's choice. So the
Ah,
family
the family.
had the same background of a
Right.
German what.
Yeah.
And so now, in these classification periods, people are having to make decisions. How do we present and how do we get classified?
Yeah.
And this is not just a decision, it's not a political decision. It's really a bread and butter decision. Because you're getting told that you'll have a little bit more privilege. Your children might have a little better chance.
Yeah.
Depending on how they're classified.
You live in better areas?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so my family made the decision on behalf of my dad to classify as colored. So he classified twice because he got taken from school one day to be classified. When he got there, they classified him as Motswana, as native, because he presented with a Tswana name. He presented, in a Tswana school, all of that. He goes home and the family's like, oh goodness, we didn't.
And phenotypically, so what
So
he
my
looks like?
my father's looks like you.
Okay.
Very much phenotypically looks like you. So my family then, says to him, okay, we need to, otherwise you're going to be the child not classified like the adults in the family who are classified colored, and that would have become a problem, right? So they then take him back to reclassify. Now, nothing phenotypically about him changes when he goes to go and reclassify. All he needs to change is his name is English and he speaks Afrikaans. All of a sudden, he's colored.
He wasn't pinched like my father.
No.
You know the pinching? Yes, he pinch. And then if he's native, he'll say Echu. And if he's colored, he'll say Ina.
No, I'm laughing because I can't cry.
You know what's so important about what you're saying? Is that it's these kinds of things that also tells us that it was never about biology. And so what I was learning that colored was never race.
Like that's the classic story of how ridiculous
It
this
is
whole thing
never-
is.
It was
never-
never race.
It was-
It was never biology. It was always them finding things that they could use to separate us. And they used silly cultural markers. And also it depended on which officer you were in front of on the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So it was all a make-believe. It was a make-up of apartheid to try and divide us. And so colored families and some colored families were just presented as they were and they were just told they're colored.
Right.
Others manufactured in the ways that we manufactured. But my family was also really gritty about this thing. So one of my aunts, Aunt Margaret found a way to get 2 passes. She got a colored pass and a native pass. Love the lady. She lived until she was 100.
Listen,
She lived until
that's gangster.
Absolutely.
During apartheid. That's amazing.
She was a businesswoman. She ran creches. She ran tuck shops. All of these things. She lived until she was 101 and was still running businesses at that age, just to give you a sense of who she was. But she managed to get 2 passes, and so she managed to get the family to be able to live in between both worlds and defy apartheid's spatial geography until the day my dad got arrested. He got arrested in working in one of her shops because he had a colored pass when he was now in a native area. But that's just to show you that it wasn't just this passive compliance. We weren't just, happy to comply, because it was breaking and destroying our families. Colored people were a result of a lot of violence and brokenness. My family, my father was taken away, or was basically told he can be free if he's not in that area anymore. So he had to come to El Dorado Park to flee the idea of being in prison for being in the wrong place because he was in his aunt's shop. So I want to put forward that colored people have also suffered damage and harm.
Of course.
Through being colored.
But I
that
think there's a
classification.
resentfulness from black people in the
yes.
sense of like, you benefited from
Exactly.
apartheid when we didn't. So I don't know what we want colored people to do about that now. Or like, do we want reparations?
The number of pennies that are dropping, because when I first heard you talk about this, and also I feel really lazy and stupid because I'm a writer and I have to sheepishly say to you, I have not read your book, right? Because if I had read the book, none of this would for me be, and it's not as if I didn't know about the book. But then come to think of it, I mean, there are books I bought in 2014 I haven't read. But I'm still
The one thing I've learned now as a writer is that books last forever, so you can read them at any time.
Our producer is waving frantically for us just to kind of take a bit of a water break, and then we'll come back to this conversation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We're still here with I don't know what to call you. You are a woman of so many talents. You're a writer, activist.
Yeah, a recent broadcaster.
Welcome to the world of broadcasting. A recent broadcaster. You're many things. But Tessa Dooms, you're here. And what is the name of your book, by the way?
Colored: How Classification Became Culture.
Okay, we'll put it up so people can get it. And don't ask us where to get it. At every bookstore you can possibly get in South Africa, I'm sure you can get it. But yes, you were saying something about your pennies dropping.
And the thing for me, and part of why I really said, no man, let's get Tessa to talk about this, is because if someone, and I consider myself very smart, that's up for debate, but if I was this ignorant and I was having these thoughts, and this is about these tensions between black people and colored people, and you have kind of addressed it in a way. But what do you want? I mean, you can even look into the camera. What do you want black people to think? Because honestly speaking, when I thought about it, I was like, oh, flip, that actually makes so much sense. I also have got more than one identity, other than the fact that I'm South African and I'm African, whatever. But I am black, but I'm also Zulu. And you are black, but you're not Zulu. Why can't colored people have the same? And I just want you to speak a little bit more about that, like addressing black people who are black and Zulu and Tswana and that specifically about that.
So here's what I want to say about that, right?
Yeah.
Is that all of our identities are in some ways a product of colonialism and apartheid, unfortunately, right? Because
Literally.
Including Zuluness, by the way.
Including Zuluness. Because the disruption of those things, the disruption of white supremacy and its colonial conquest is something that we have not grappled with fully. But one of the things that is probably most clear is that all of our so-called racial classifications, black, white, or whatever, all of those were also given to us by apartheid and colonialism. So when people say, why are you using colored? It is a product of apartheid, it's a product of colonialism. So is the word black.
Yep.
We weren't black until whiteness needed us to be black. And what black consciousness did for us in the 70s, in the 80s, is it allowed us to take the word black back and say we're going to define it as the source of our struggle. We're going to define it as a point of solidarity. We're going to redefine it on our own terms and take back the power.
Right.
So you can't call me black as a slur.
Right.
Because I've redefined black to say black is about struggle. It's about shared oppression. It's about our right to define ourselves. It's about our shared humanity. And Black is as human as anything else. That was the beauty of Black consciousness, right? And so that's what the colored community, in my view, has done. Whether we've done it sometimes directly or indirectly, is that we've been claiming back the word to mean what it is that we wanted to mean, to showcase the thing that we've done. And so I don't mind talking about the book in the ways that I have, because the other part of the book, that's one chapter of the book that I spoke to you about.
Yeah.
The rest of the book, the other 9 chapters, are us explaining what is the cultural stuff that we made. So that what apartheid and colonialism did is they gave us a classification, culture, or colored. They gave us colored, the classification. What we did is the cultural work of forming community. And that has music, it has food, it has politics, it has all sorts of things in that mix. It has hair. And all of those stories are the things that make up what it means to be colored. And when we don't like the word colored, we have now started to even do the cultural work of the renaming and redefining, right? So people who still want to use the word colored have started to change the spelling. So K-U-L-L-I-D is a use of the word colored.
What is it now?
K-U-L-L-I-D.
Yeah.
So that we can keep the word. Yeah, so we can keep the word on our own terms.
Right.
Yeah.
Colored. It's still colored, but it's not their colored. It's our colored.
Right.
Right? So we're doing that work. Then there are people who are saying we're going to reject the word colored for the identities we held before the word colored came. That's why you're seeing the First Nation movements. You're seeing the Khoi and San movements who can say we don't need that term colored because we have other cultural identities that we can go with.
You want pre-colonial.
Yeah, you go to the pre-colonial, you go to what has happened in between, right? And so the whole community is finding its way. And so every one of us, I can tell you for a fact that every one of us, when we say we are colored, or when we still claim that community, we're not doing it on the colonizer's terms. We're doing it on our own terms, right? So the generation that comes after me, I'm 41, so think the 20-year-olds, the Tylers. For them, when they say colored, they're not even thinking about Verwoerd. And they're definitely not thinking about being better than anyone else. Tyler has never said she's not Black. Because that's not what her community has told her. You're not Black. They've just told her you are colored. And so she doesn't have to deny Blackness. She can integrate her. In fact, she's probably one of those trailblazers in the community that is showing how your Blackness can be part of your cultural, your identity. As part of your cultural identity, you can still be colored as well. She's trying to, trailblaze, like you were saying, the braids thing. Tyler does braids all the time. That used to be a taboo in my generation when we were younger, because you were still trying to, be as close to whiteness as possible because that was the socialization. That's starting to break. The language is starting to break. There's so many barriers that are starting to break down. And if we just approached colored identity and colored people with a lot more empathy, you will find that we are doing the work. It's not as loud. It's not even sometimes as conscious, but we are doing the work and we are open to the work. And I was actually glad about one thing that Gayton did. I had lots of issues with the things that Gayton did in his tweets, in his defense, in his ease of the use of the word, of the K word. But one of the things that he did do is remind everybody that there was this history of being a Makena and of all of that is also part of the story here. And so, yes, he is Black. I don't know that he has ever said, I am Black until this moment, but he is. And he has the right to be. But even in our Blackness, we have to be accountable. So you don't just, no Black person gets to just use the K word willy-nilly and with comfort. Just because we know what that word denoted. There was no reappropriation of the word. There's no community that casually uses that word. So we still have to
owns it, right?
That owns it. So we still have to be absolutely accountable. And I think the colored community is at a place of accountability amongst ourselves as well. So there's no avoidance of accountability. So if you feel aggrieved, like colored people have sold out Blackness, I want you to know now that colored people, number one, have done a lot of work culturally to build something that they want to be seen and legitimized for, but on the other hand, are currently doing work to make sure that we start to hold ourselves accountable for the socialization, especially of apartheid, that has brought us to a point where there was and is still remnants of anti-Blackness in the community. We are not sitting back silently or quietly. We're doing the work.
And now coming back to you, because part of the things that happen, particularly, whiteness, the moment you start identifying, because I have identity, I do have a strong Zulu identity and so on. You saw my intro here, Iqadi and whatever, and I was Mapoloba. And what is that the moment you start writing a book about your colored identity and right now you're sitting here in the studio, you are discussing it. Is this assumption that if you go to any literary festival, all people want now for you to talk about is your coloredness, right? So I just want to bring it back to you as a person. Kgomotso says this, like, I'm such a fan as well. I've never had the opportunity to tell you, so I'm telling you now, is I feel like you're one of those people that I can't wait to see what you're going to do in the next 20. I can't wait to see what you're going to do.
I expected her to be an MP by now. Do you know what I mean? I thought, ooh, okay, Rivonia Circle.
So as we just we're just having this conversation. What do you want? Because I'm 53, and people think, oh yeah, he's less than 7 years away from SASA. I have still so many things that I'm going to still do, and I know for a fact I'm going to go into academia. I know that I'm. Where are you going from here?
So let me start actually with the color thing, and then I'll migrate.
Yeah.
In that, if Black consciousness gave us the ability to reclaim identity, what feminists did was help us to understand intersectionality, and that we are more than just one identity. And so I'm very glad that you're asking me about more than my coloredness, because I am more than a colored person. That doesn't, and this thing that we have to choose identities,
Hated.
It's terrible.
Hated.
Or people who say, why not just scrap all the identities and just be human? That's not life. We are more than, we are so complex and nuanced and diverse, and even in our own bodies, we can be multiple things and are
Auntie Helen, are you listening?
we are so many things, and so I appreciate that. I appreciate that you see me as more than just one thing or the other. But what am I doing, and what do I want to be doing in the next 20 years? So about 3-4 years ago, when we started off the Rivonia Circle project, I said I'm giving the country 20 years. I'm giving the country every day of the next 20 years. We're now 4 years in, so it's 17 years. You guys have 17 years left of me. But I've decided that there are a few tasks that need to be done in this country, right? The first one is that we absolutely have to get organized in this country, especially amongst Black marginalized communities. And I will say this very, very bluntly. White people are organized, guys. They are organized.
Dude!
For such a small grouping of people, they are organized. Whether you're talking about 50 Rand a month from 300,000 of them for AfriForum, whether you're talking about community groups for making sure Black people aren't on our streets, whether you're talking, hey,
listen, I have a WhatsApp group from Sea Point.
Hey,
they are they don't play.
They're organized.
I live in Boksburg. Enough said.
So there's a Malcolm X quote that says, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. And I think that as Black South Africans in this country, as people who are oppressed and marginalized in this country, we owe it to ourselves to begin to organize. Because what we have done is we have outsourced our agency, our ability to organize, our ability to think and, imagine what kind of society we want to politicians and government. We have decided they are now the organizers, but we have a history and a tradition of organizing in this country. The 70s and the 80s would not have happened had we not have a tradition of organizing. And so, number one thing that you're going to see me do for the next 20 odd years is help the society get more organized, agitate for a more organized response to the challenges that we are taking. Number 2 is political. And the politics is starting off with the fact that we have to fix our politics, guys. We have to fix our politics.
They're broken.
They're broken. We have gotten to the point, and all of us know this feeling. We've had these conversations a million times, where we have left the politics to the worst of us. You think, who's going to go into politics? Who's the bad guy? Who's the worst person we could possibly find? The most debased one. Let's leave politics to them.
Because you have to have absolutely the way the system works. Like the first thing, you gotta have no scruples.
Right.
That's the first thing. You just gotta be going out there to just grab money,
And
to
you gotta
power.
vote like a sheep.
Yeah.
There's this
Yeah.
group mentality that you gotta belong to this.
And so that is not sustainable. That can't be the thing that people lost their lives for a debased politics where the worst of us are the ones that lead. Because you can say, let's leave the politics up to the worst possible kinds of humans that are politicians. But you have to remember that then graduates them into governance. The only pathway to govern the country.
And the thing is, once they're there, it's so hard to remove
Get
them.
them out!
They're there for life.
To get them out is hard. And so we have to start reimagining how we get better human beings into those spaces of governance. And if that means we have to reimagine the whole governance architecture, so be it. So that's point number 3. I have decided, and this is not just a South Africa mission, this is my global mission. I'm literally getting on planes for this one. And I mean that literally, done that this year, still going to go and do it. Is that this is the moment in the history of the world where democracy is up for debate, reimagining, and innovation. We have this window of time, and if you think about the 70s and the 80s, post-World War II, there came a moment about the economy that was like this, where it was like the economic systems. We need to figure out what we're doing, and what was born out of that? Neoliberal capitalism. It got its heyday. The Washington Consensus, the what, the IMF, all of that. And that became the economic infrastructure that has brought us here. But part of that was a particular kind of democracy, particular kind of democratic institutions, particular kind of ways that we do elections, voting, All of that was an assumed part of what we're going to do. And I'm saying that that part particularly is up for debate now. And we have to reimagine democracy. For me, nothing is sacrosanct. Voting isn't sacrosanct. Judiciaries are not sacrosanct. Nothing.
The existence of political parties is
not
not
sacrosanct.
sacrosanct. You know, I had a conversation with Malinduli, former DA. She's a friend of mine. She sent me these documents where, because I was asking, I was like, Mbali, why can't we just directly elect our representatives? Where I'm just, because I imagine if you were to just stand and you just like you want to be an MP. I mean, I know that the system is now gradually, getting there, but it needs to now really
quicker.
Absolutely.
practically, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
And it's globally so, because we are at a point where the democratic institutions that we are all told we must defend are actually producing autocrats.
See, this is where I came to a conclusion. I'm so glad you talk about, we need to kind of look at democracy in a new way. Because lately I'd started to think, isn't democracy a little bit...
You were starting to be pro-Kagame there for a while.
Listen.
And you're not wrong in that.
No, completely. Where I think
because-
democracy is overrated.
Right. And this is where the danger is. That if we do democracy badly, we give democracy a bad name.
Yes.
Because democracy is about the people governing themselves. And part of governing ourselves means that the institutions that are there, we can even change those. And so those are the big missions that I've set for myself. And some of it is about organizing in local communities, which I do more consistently than I could possibly tell you. I'm in the Joburg Crisis Alliance. I've been organizing water protests. I think I started the year off by organizing a water protest in January. So I'm doing that work on a daily basis. Another part of it is narrative work, and that's why I'm in the broadcasting space, because we have to start having different kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
It's also the reason why I'm fighting for a national dialogue that is better than what people have imagined right now, because I do think we need to sit with each other and have some particular fights
I was thinking-
and engagements and all of that.
The whole
the whole
colored conversation, for example, that we were just
Yes.
having.
Yeah.
This should be
This-
part of the national
Absolutely.
dialogue.
But we must go as far as constitutional changes. We have to have the conversations that people want to have about migration in a
Yes.
lot more constructive ways.
Yes.
There's so many conversations to be had. And so I think that the discourse space, the space of conversation is really important. And then the other one is changing politics and perhaps entering politics. So I haven't taken that off the table. But it's one thing at a time. I'm one human.
Because,
There is a God.
because guys, this is not sustainable.
No.
We cannot continue right now with the system we have, where right now we have got an absentee slumlord as a president. Absentee, like he's not here. I don't know what he does as a first job. He's moonlighting as a president.
But what I'll tell you is this: South Africans are pissed off.
Yeah.
Like every day,
man.
I just find that my nerves keep getting pushed. And they're afraid, and all of us are just edgy like this.
Absolutely.
If somebody just lights and and I worry because who is that flamethrower?
Yeah.
I would rather it be you than other people. Let's just say, for example, do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because then you get really divisive, really horrible people because what happened when the Met is lit, is the Met.
It's lit, yeah.
The match is lit. It's very difficult to control that fire.
Yeah.
July 2021
Told us.
cannot repeat itself. And I landed in Durban on the day it started. It was a Sunday. And believe me, when I was stuck there and I said, this can never happen again.
Because
Okay.
I have a feeling
Yeah.
that I'm in that let's get to the streets. Let's revolt. But I'm worried. Who's leading this revolt? And what are we revolting for?
Never mind who's leading the revolt. Here's where it is. If we revolt, we must know, and all the people who call for revolt are usually the ones who will be shielded from it, who will be insulated from it. Because revolt usually means that people's lives who are already really bad,
Are gonna get worse.
people who are going to get worse, and you have to sit with that, right? So I have friends from Sudan who were part of the Sudan revolution, and they were right to remove a dictator that was making their lives terrible. Those same friends are now dealing with a government who does not have a handle on what's happening there and are now at the hands of militia.
Yeah.
And those militia are killing people unrelenting.
And that's not a
so-
choice. Dictator, militia.
Exactly. So we can't do this in a way that revolt is our only option.
Right.
What we do need, though, is revolution. And revolution requires a reform agenda and organizing. And revolution doesn't have to be revolt. They're different things. Revolt is just turn the table over. Revolution is let's start to really shape this table up. Let's come up with a new architecture for the table. It's not just let's clean the table. That's reform. Reform is let's clean the table. Revolution says let's change the table, but let's do it in a way that is constructive, that we understand what we're going to do and understand how we're going to do it. Otherwise, we will have revolt and the table will just be flipped. And I don't think that the majority of poor South Africans in this country can withstand another revolt. We need to find a way forward where we are revolutionary without it being at the expense of the people who are already now in the worst situation.
And this, my dear viewer, is what we call a still uncaptured conversation.
Indeed.
This is what
One of the best we've ever
we're
had.
about, yeah.
And I hope Tessa Dooms comes again. And whatever it is you are doing in the future, I'm there. Sign me up. And I know
Yeah.
you will too.
Oh.
Thank you so much for
Thank you. This
joining
has been
us.
so illuminating. Thank you so much for honoring us, our invite. Yeah.
Thank you, Tessa. Thank you very much. This is Tessa Dooms. Just Google her if you don't know her. And I'm sure you're as impressed as we are about her because she's just quite, frankly, an extraordinary person. But engage with us. Tell us what you think. Tell us who, maybe they should tell us who they want on the show. You know, people have a lot of opinions and we really do value your input. So please engage with us on social media. And for this show, that's it. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Gwanda waliwa mthakathi.